Pardon? G Suite for Education is it's all online. Okay, so that when we're talking about old sort of downloads of Microsoft Word, they're dead documents, and I don't mean dead as in a negative way, but you're basically storing it locally. With Google, everything is in the cloud. Oh, the cloud, what's the cloud? I can't tell you, if I'm honest. I don't really understand the cloud. All I know is I look for something, it's kind of there, and I open it up, and lo and behold, it sort of works, okay? Everything's paperless, so everything is live. It's all stored on a big server at Google HQ in California or wherever they're based, okay? All Google software ends in .google.com. So if you look on the board over here, the people in the other room, I will read these out, I promise. You've got mail.com, which is obviously your email, Classroom, Drive, Docs, Slides, Sheets, and Drawings. If you do get a bit of time today, even just 3 or 4 minutes, you might just want to have a look at some of the other software that I don't address. Predominantly, I'm going to be looking at Google Classroom. And the reason is because that's what your children are going to be using 85–90% of their school time as we're moving towards more innovative teaching, more online teaching. This is what we're going to be looking at. And in particular, and I know it's a bit of a sore point, and I'll bring it up at the beginning so you can kind of berate me at the start, is home learning. And a lot of home learning is going to go onto Google Classroom, okay? But if you know how it works, and if you understand the benefits and the process of Google Classrooms, then hopefully you'll be like, okay, we don't necessarily need books and textbooks and paper and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, okay, if that makes sense to you. All right. So, with that in mind, if you haven't already, can you please go to classroom.google.com, okay? So, classroom.google.com.
That's very correct.
No, good? Okay. So guys, I will move on if that's okay, because I know we've got a bit of time, but it'll go really quickly if we're waiting for people. And yeah, okay, it's fine. So, what I've done is I've set up a series of tasks that hopefully mirror again what your pupils will, what your children are going to be asked to do, if that's okay. It's kind of gone backwards. I should have rearranged them. I ran out of time. I do apologise. So the first one that I want you to do is, if you look at the bottom, it's got a question mark. This is a question. So very, very simply, a teacher could pose a question for one of your pupils to think about. Okay, so if you click on that, it just simply says, what are you hoping to get out of this Google session? Now, I can only see you, obviously, as guest 10, 11, blah, 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 but your children's names would be up there otherwise. Would you be able just to have a little sentence or two, or a word or a phrase, or what are you hoping to get out of this Google session? Okay. And be honest, because you're all anonymous, so I don't know who's which one. Okay? So as this starts to get populated, the teacher can actually give feedback to that comment as well. So for example, guest 3, I won't ask who you are, somewhere over here. I can just simply press reply, and where are we? That's it. At guest 3, so it actually gives you a notification that would come to your email as well, and I would simply say, how? Okay? But obviously, being a an excellent teacher and practitioner that I am, I would give a lot more of a detailed answer. Okay, so you can see that it will actually direct it straight to the person, the user, so your child's first part of their name and then the email address as well. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? It's pretty simple. It's straightforward. And a lot of the time, this stuff is straightforward. And it's one of those cases that you don't know it until you know it. And when you do know it, you're like, oh, God, is that it? You know? He gets paid to do that. I will edit out the rubbish jokes, by the way, on the screencast, I promise. Okay. Cool. So we're going to do something a little bit more complicated now. If you don't mind, can you click on It's All About Me? And this will take you, hopefully, this will take you to a Google Doc. Okay? So if you ever wanted to go to Google Docs, again, it's just docs.google.com. And this is the online equivalent, I guess, of Microsoft Word. It's a word processing piece of software. So if you click on that, so I tell by the silence that people are like waiting. I'm like, finished. It's great. You'll notice on mine that I've only got a button that says share. Now, I'll tell you about that a little bit later, but you should have a button that says turn in or hand in. Is that correct? Yeah. When you're happy with your work, just turn it in. Hand it.
Mine says share as well.
Yours just says share. Oh.
Okay. There we go.
So now if I am the teacher and I go to It's All About Me, I can now see who's handed things in, because you can see they're all starting to go bing, 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 bing. And I can also see who's been assigned stuff and hasn't handed it in. Guess number 1, 10, 11, 12. You understand, okay? I can see that some of you have changed it, but you haven't quite turned it in yet either. Or if you have, it hasn't registered on here, but it is still registering all the time like that, okay? Something I'll talk about later is, again, regards to home learning, because I know a lot of you have got that in the forefront of your mind. If a teacher puts a date on for it to be handed in by, say I set it today and it needs to be in on Thursday, depending what Google Classroom it is, we're having a few issues with it, but it should then sync with the Google Calendar, which I'll show you as well. So therefore you can access your child's calendar by going to calendar.google.com, and you should then see when their homework or work is due in, if that makes sense. Okay? It could be quite a lot on there, because they might be part of 8 or 9 or 10 Google Classrooms, but they hopefully will have a different colour, or even if you click on one you can say, oh, that's for English, that's for maths, that's for EIT, whatever. Okay, does that make sense for everybody? Any questions about that process? Did anybody find that someone was writing on top of theirs? No?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that yours? Yeah, I think it was someone next door. Don't panic, your computer's not possessed, right. I promise, okay. What is going on? The school is haunted or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's not, I promise. Okay, let's go back to the task then. Okay, if you look on the next one then, which says Google Calendar, what I'd like you to do is just have a little look and maybe a tiny explore of Google Calendar. So if you just click on the link that I've posed for you as well, and you should end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Now this is obviously my calendar. You're all going to see your individual users, so yours probably don't look that full at the minute, okay? Mine's still loading. There we go. So that's my timetable, basically. What I want you to just have a little look at and to do is if you press create, you can create yourself a nice little event, I don't know, Google training, stuff like that. Have a little see how it goes. If you want more options, just click on literally the button that says more options. Okay. I'm just going to add that slides task to that while you guys have a little look at Google Calendar. And I'll explain a bit more about Google Calendar as well, okay?
So this is my personal calendar though, but you go to create. This one here. Yeah, so you go to here, you go to more options, and then you get a bigger screen. So I went like this. So create here. Create. Yeah, so it's on this side. So let's just say again here. Okay, so if you can close the main menu like this, and then create comes up. If you open this menu, you close it. Yours is just click on this. Click on this. And then you can go to
calendar.
yeah, calendar. Then click on there. Yeah. And then see, I have this plus sign on.
Plus sign.
You have a plus sign? Maybe yes. Join class. No? Maybe you're out of the class. It was here. That one, yeah. The M7 here.
So Google Calendar is something that we're really pushing now throughout the school, particularly in senior school, but I really want junior school to start using it as well. I think it's a brilliant way because Kent College is such a crazy school sometimes. There's so much going on with after school clubs, before school. Children are asked to remember an awful lot, and I sometimes feel quite sorry for them because they'll forget something they should have brought in if they were asked the day before, but we don't realise as teachers that they've probably got swimming training, football training, this, that and the other, piano lessons, music lessons. There's a lot going on. I think using Google Calendar is a really brilliant way to organise their lives. I know we use the pads, not so much in senior school now, because I know you guys have got rid of them, which I think is a brilliant thing, saving paper and whatnot. But then we do need some way of organising their lives, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic way. It's a free piece of software, everyone's got it, so why aren't we using it? And I think for you as parents, like I mentioned before, if you can now see everything that they've got going on, including when their homework's due in, when they need to bring in cardboard boxes for some modelling or something or other, then this is a really great way of doing it. So, for example, I've just been told that tomorrow, at 2 till 3, I've got a meeting with, I've got a meeting with Mr. Cashin. Never bodes well, does it? Meeting with Mr. Cashin. Doesn't repeat. It's 2 till 3. We can change that again. It's, you know, I mean, it's fairly basic stuff. The colours. What I like to do is I like to keep my year groups all in the same colour. So year 3 a particular colour, year 4, etc., etc. You might want to again just have a word with your children about you know, if you've got schoolwork due in, you do it that one colour. If you've got an important meeting, you always keep that as a red. That's what I always flag mine up as if it's something that I don't know anything about. You can add guests as well. So I could add, you know, any one of my members of staff. I'm just going to see if I can add any of you guys. Yeah, I can. So I'll add guest number 1. It's only because she was the first one in at 12:30. I'm like, wow, you're so cute. It's not that good, I promise you. But yeah, so guest 1, okay. So your pupils can add friends if they've got project work going on, if they want to invite someone else to do something. You understand how it works, really. If I press save, would you like to send an invite? Then yeah, I would. So I'm going to send you an invite, if that's okay. And again, in your mail.google.com, you would have an invite and whether you want to accept it or not, okay? So you can see, hopefully, yeah, there we go. It's just appeared here. Meeting 2 till 3 has appeared with Mr. Cashin, okay? Now, the other thing I did was that for one of the tasks, oh yeah, it's this one up here. So if I just come off here, okay. So these boxes here, these all correspond to the Google Classrooms that I'm involved in. Either I created them or I have joined them, okay? A bit like you. You've all joined the class, okay? Now, for one of the tasks, you'll see in a minute, it's got a deadline, and that deadline is tomorrow. So I would probably always keep this up and running. If you see there, you can actually see my assignment of my slide task, if I just highlight that a bit bigger, has just popped up. So read the instructions, this needs to be handed in. But again, by using it and syncing it with Google Classroom, you guys are well aware when homework's due in. Now there is a caveat to that, and something that teachers will need to get better at is putting a due date. If there's no due date, God only knows when it's due in. Does that make sense? But that will just come in practice, and if you just give us a bit of patience with that, we really, really want it to work. And if you just press back, okay. So at the top, I've got new material slides task, okay? Now, like I said, I've just put this up as a material, so there's no due date for this, because everyone's going to be using the same set of slides, okay? So you just click on how to use G Suite. Ignore the first couple, because I was doing it with pupils. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit slow today. There we go. It's because I've got using Google for numpties. It's just made it like freeze there for so long. And I'm not accusing anyone. Anyway, I'm going to be quiet. Okay.
Oh, this one.
Okay, if you go down to task, if you go down to slide 4 when it opens up, pardon? Slide 4. Go to slide 4. So you can see up here, you can see everybody who has accessed the document, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're all now getting onto the same slide. I'll be with you in 1 second, I promise, all right? What I want you to do for me is, in the next slide, so 5, 6, 7 and 8, you'll see that I've got some headings. what I'd like you guys to do for me, if you haven't been to one of my meetings already, is just give me some suggestions, some ideas or solutions to some things that are not quite working as they should at the school. Under one of these headings, okay? So we've got curriculum, reading, innovation, home learning, or other. If there's something that doesn't quite fit in there, don't bother putting car parking. We are working on that, I promise. But you understand, okay? So where it says here, click to add text, just click to add text. We might need to change the size of the font, but we can do that in a bit. Have a little look and just add a comment or two, okay? Make it a boarding school. Very good. Freaking.
How about that? So?
Yeah, well, I'll pass that message on. So. There's some good suggestions. Thank you. And you can see when someone then is trying to find a space for their line, things go up and down, and that's when you have to make the text a bit smaller or try and fit it all in, especially if you've got more ideas. Obviously, you know, when the pupils are doing it, they'll just find great ways of, you know, creating new pages and whatnot. So, okay, good stuff. Okay, so what I want you to do for me now is, might take a little bit longer to do this if that's okay, is can you now open a blank Google Doc for me as well? And I'm just going to leave it like that for the time being. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Can you just open up a blank Google Doc if that's alright? Remember, might be someone on the board that might be able to help you with that as well. Mr. Parks, they're doing very well, to be fair to them.
Very well. Look how quiet it is.
It's so quiet.
I don't know if someone wants to hand up and ask, or you know.
Oh, trust me, at the beginning it was a different story.
Oh,
but
was it?
yeah. Okay,
Good,
so
good instruction. That's what I put it down to. Good instruction.
absolutely.
Document, right? Open a new document. So how do I open a new one? A new one. No, this is the old one.
I'm just listening. It's good. So just open up. Excellent. Well done, guys.
So documents, and as you can see, the documents
Okay, so I'm going to open up a blank Google Doc as well. What I want to do now is, rather than the teacher posting something on Google Classroom, pupils quite more often than not actually take the initiative themselves as to use G Suite when they're collaborating and cooperating on different tasks and projects, okay? What I'd like you to do for me is, if I get rid of that, top there, I want you just to turn to the person beside you, and whatever their guest username is, I want you to share them into your doc, so you can work on it as a pair, okay? So for example, if I'm looking on the board here, I'm going to share my doc, and only one of you needs to do this. I'm going to share mine with George. George, what's your number? 22. 22, okay. So I'm just going to call it work. You must give it a title, because otherwise it won't let you share. Okay, so yes.
So call it,
2. Lovely. And you can see there that I found guest 22. And I'm going to add a note
What's the name
saying,
of the document? What's it done?
hey George.
And then you share it. And you were guest 40.
Let's work on this.
So guest 40. There it is. 60. So put there.
It's only one document, remember. So you can share it with 1 and 2. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. You can share it with as many people as you want. You can share it with 10 people, 15 people.
Send them as a sent.
But remember, it's only one document, okay?
Right.
Because he said, hey, let's work on this.
Okay, so let's
Okay.
work.
So please share it with someone else.
So it says shared.
Okay, for those people that have had something shared with them, So for those people that have had something shared with them, there's a couple of ways of getting that notification. You can either go to the Docs homepage, or if you go to mail.google.com, then George will have a notification saying the work has been shared with him. So George, if you want to go there, and then you can open up the link from there.
So .com. So it's .com. Yeah. And you get a notification. So if you go to .com, here we go. Did you send me? Just refresh. Have you sent me one? I'll go now. If you go to home page, the document one, the blue, it should I get nothing on this. Oh, working dog. No notification though. Oh, I see guest 40 there. Okay. Open. I see that. But no, I thought you got a notification here somewhere.
Great stuff. If you just open up the so you can see as it's like a little
Yeah, I didn't
I didn't know whether they were giggling away though.
well, we're not seeing the notification. I sent it to guest 40.
Yeah.
But I don't see how she's going to see the notification.
So she goes to mail. Wow. So if she was in her account, went to mail.
To
Or
You know when to laugh the same in my laugh that I don't know anything about whatever it was.
That's right. So there's different ways of getting to the same.
Right, yes, okay.
Has something used successfully on the same document as a partner?
So if I go, so this is the document.
So remember, Google Doc, you need to have their email address to share it.
Write something down. Yeah, okay, so I can see you writing. Okay. Yeah, so you can write stuff.
It's close. I can smell it. It's close. It's close. How are we doing on the same dot? Yeah. Yeah. Check you out. It's good. Yeah. Okay, so on that doc, just type in whatever you want. If you just spend a couple of minutes, just again, it could be something about yourself. It could be anything. If you want to insert an image, and I won't tell you how to do that. You might want to figure that out yourself. But if you want to insert an image, if you want to change the text, make it look nice, do something really nice with it. Okay.
So now this is going to go where? What photos? Is it my photos? Is it online? These are my photos? No photos found because this is the guest account. There's no photos there. Yeah, so this is I can go. No, this is the guest account, right? So if I want to insert something from my computer, I can go upload from my computer. So then any photos that I have on my computer, I can probably go. So I don't know if I have photos on this one. I think I do. I'll actually have to look. Pictures. So I can go to pictures. You have to be careful, yeah. But okay, so you can do insert table, drawing,
when you're working on the same document, you should see like a little different colour cursor, and that's where you can see where someone else is, so you can't overwrite where they are. If that makes sense. All right. Okay, if you can all go back to Google Classroom. So you've been working on this amazing project for weeks on end. You're really proud of it. And you want your teachers to see it. Your teacher wants that working to evaluate, to mark, to grade, whatever you want to call it, okay? So, if you go back to your Google Classroom, you can see that at the top, it says Google Doc. This is an assignment, okay? This is something that you need to answer or hand in. So if you click on that, now yours is going to look different to mine, okay? It just says please hand in docs, okay? So if you click on yours, so click on view assignment. Okay. So mine, obviously being admin, I can see all of you guys, and again, I can see who hasn't handed it in and who has handed it in. At the minute, none of you have handed it in, okay? So, if you go to add or create, and there's a few options there, okay? Unfortunately, I can't show you on this because, again, mine's the admin side, so mine's the other side. But there are a few options. You've got Google Drive, you've got a link, or you've got a file. So obviously a link is if you wanted to show something from YouTube, like a link from YouTube, or a link from another website that you found really useful or something like that. A file is if you've got it saved locally, so it might be a PDF, it might be a JPEG, it might be a movie, MP3, okay? All of you guys, though, are going to click on your Google Drive. Because once you open a Google Doc, it automatically saves in your Google Drive. Okay, that's what we refer to as the cloud. It's like a big storage system in the sky, in the electronic sky. You do not need to worry ever about saving. Okay, it's not like Word. God, I remember so many assignments where just the power would go and you're like, oh my God, what happened to my word count? And I've lost 3,000 words because you're just so in the zone of typing. You do never need to worry about that anymore because it automatically saves to your Google Drive. So if you can all click on add or create, click on Google Drive. Now what you're looking for is the title of your Google Doc. So George, if I go again to you, you've called yours work, or we called ours work, I should say. So if you go to recent, along the top it should say recent. It should be the first one on the left-hand side because that's the last one you had open. Okay? I want you to click on that, please. It doesn't matter if nothing's on there, it really doesn't matter. So just click, and then the add button should come up in dark blue. So if you click on that, or double click on it, okay?
Close it up here.
And then hand in, or turn in, or whatever it says at the bottom, depending on your model.
This is almost has to be submitted, so that's fine.
And then all of a sudden, those ones that said assigned, say handed in, and that's when you can start to see. But do make sure that you've attached it, because otherwise you can say marker's done, but you haven't handed it in. Okay? So you must make sure that you actually attach it and then hand it in. So I can see that. Oh, someone's handed in 2 attachments. Very good.
Ah, okay, so you can see that too.
That's my boy George, thanks very much.
So what happens if we click on submit? Actually,
So you've attached it.
yeah.
So what you're saying is if you click on unsubmit, that means that you get it back, but I don't have it anymore. Because once you submit it, you can't do anything else with it. You can't edit, you can't change it, because ultimately you just said, that's my work, I finished.
So you can take it back. Like
If you unsubmit it, you can quickly go, oh,
But we cannot change
hand it back in again.
no, now I can't change it, but so I'll submit it. So I'll take it back.
So let's try and get a few more in.
Okay, so I see I submit here. And then 62. Anyhow, now I have
needs
it.
to be, then it will be removed
From
the
him.
information.
Yeah, so then I can go. So I close this. I just close this. So now here's my working down. So
Where is removed? Yeah, I mean, it's removed.
yeah, I think. So then I can write down something else here. So I can write so how do we do share? No. We go back to classroom. So I'll go Google Docs. I have to go classroom.
A really good note, a really good thing came up. Sorry, George said, I can't submit it. And I said, why not? And all of a sudden it clicked in my head because I'm the owner of the document. It's only the owner, even if George put in 95.5% of the work, because I'm the
But I want a
owner,
new one. This
I'm the one that has to hand it in. It's the person that creates the document. But yeah, just to be aware of that as well. So if your children are working on group projects, the only way they can become the owner is if they make a copy. If they make a copy, then they can become the owner, but then become 2 separate documents. So you're no longer working on the same one, if that makes sense. Which is kind of handy, but then you've got to make sure you're both written on the same one. All right, guys. So as a teacher now, as a teacher, I'm looking here, and I'm going to click on Guess 15.
Where's the new one? This one? This one?
It was something written in capital letters, but it doesn't appear on there.
Attention's powerful.
All the changes saved in Drive. It's automatic. It's saved. It should be saved.
So as a teacher, is that it? As a teacher, I would obviously be reading over the mammoth amount of hard work and effort that's gone into this. There are different ways that we as teachers can kind of report back on this particular piece of work. So we can either edit directly, so we can change things ourselves. We can make suggestions, and we can just view it. So what well, it depends from teacher to teacher. What I like to do in the past is make suggestions, because ultimately it's not my piece of work; it's a pupil's piece of work, you can suggest things, particularly if we're talking about story writing, things like that. So for example, if I do edit directly, only because I can then just type, and you can sort of see how suggesting works. If I go to suggesting, say that was the child's work, I can then just put maybe in brackets, good effort, not. Have you thought about, okay? Now, that wouldn't come onto their work, but you can see these boxes have appeared. I think one because I just mistyped, so I'll get rid of it. Okay, and you can see that that goes away then. But this here, good effort, have you thought about da-da-da? Now the child can either reply to it, or they can actually do it themselves. But before that happens, I need to return it, okay? So whoever guessed 15 minutes,
That's your time up.
yeah, I know. Thanks a lot, cheers. As a teacher then, I would return that, and that way they just come back to you, and then you can start, again, editing and working on it directly, okay? Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Not that you need to really know that, but it's just good to see from our point of view how we would then use Google Classroom, respond to comments, respond to work, and then put it back as well, all right? Okay, guys and girls, I know we said we had a bit more time, but I think we've talked about an awful lot today, and I'm hoping that what we've gone through today has been useful, has been that you'll go away, and then hopefully you'll be even able to use it yourself a little bit. I've got 2 more requests if that's okay. One more task on Google Classroom if that's all right with you guys. A Google form that I'd just like you to fill out if that's okay, just kind of evaluating what you've done today, and just to think about it like that. If I just go back to our things, it's the evaluation form there. If you just click on that before you go. The other thing I'd like you to do while you're all nice and quiet is I'd like you to use it, and I want you to go home and just have a little play about with it. But not only that, I'd love you to film yourselves doing it, okay? Because, just hear me out with it. I got some faces going, oh yeah. No, what I want is, because it's great us doing this, but what I'm trying to teach the children, and what I'd love to instill into you guys, is sometimes learning can be like linear. You've got a start point, you've got an end point, okay? Which is great, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I want to start doing is using it more cyclically, okay? So you guys have now come to a point in the circle. It'd be great if you could take it further, and actually you guys becoming really proficient in it, and just a bit more confident, and starting to use it in interesting ways. Maybe you, I don't know, like you tell me, creating stuff for posters or marketing for, not necessarily your business, but if you want a children's party or something like that, rather than doing it in the tried and tested ways of whatever you've got on your laptop, why not use Google Drawings? Google Drawings is great. It's kind of like the same as Publisher, the old Publisher on Microsoft. Or you could do some stuff in Sheets if you were doing some calculations. Get your children involved. My God, they know how to do it. If they don't by now, then I've done a really bad job. So, yeah. But it'd be great if you could film yourselves doing it and just talking about it. And that right there is our cyclical learning. And maybe one of you guys would feel confident enough that when we get some more new staff in, not new staff, sorry, new parents in, one of you guys could host it. I might hold your hand if you're lucky, but it'd be great if one of you guys can come. Yeah, actually last year I was terrible, relatively speaking. But now I'm here talking to you guys about how to use Google Classroom, how to use Google Docs or whatever. So even if I got just one person sending me a video of themselves using it, I've won. And that's fantastic today, okay? Brilliant. If you don't mind just filling out that evaluation form before you go, that'd be really lovely as well. All right, thank you very much. I might just go and pop in and say, oh guys, I don't know, it's a bit nice.